So Sophie and Ella and both of our Freds, my sister and I both married men named Fred, wish they could be here, and they're with us in their hearts, of course. My mother, Kathy, had many strengths. Callie already said she was a poet, a very wonderful artist, and to both of us, and to many of you, of course to Charlie, she was a very good friend. My mother taught my sister and me that people are people, no matter what they look like or what their life circumstances are. Prejudice and bigotry had no place in my mother's heart. I treasure that legacy in my own life and the lives of my children. My mother valued reading and education. It was never, if you go to college. She always said, when you go to college. And so even though, when you look back, when I was 18, my financial situation made it seem like I could never go to school, by God's grace I did. And as a result of my formal education, I've had the opportunity to serve in ways I never would have without it. And even beyond formal degrees, I see my children who love to read and love to learn, and that as well is my mother's legacy. My mother was a stickler for proper manners. I'm so grateful for the training I received at a young age. The only reason I stand and look someone in the eye and give a firm handshake and greet people by name is because my mother taught me to do so. And I think she was channeling a bit of my Grandma Pearl in this, because her mother, Grandma Pearl, I always could hear a little voice in my head that Grandma Pearl would rise up out of the grave if I ever spoke back to an adult. And I would never hear the end of it. So I guess that's both my mother and my grandmother's legacy to me. My mother, Kathy, tried hard in life, but she messed up a lot, just like me. My mom and I both get socially anxious, and we talk way too much to the checkout lady at Target. We have strong, powerful personalities, and sometimes we come across as being really brave when actually we're very scared, and we often want to hide away. Kathy and I were both terrible with directions. We got lost a lot, and we spilled things all the time. But that just meant we were human. And learning to give ourselves a break and learning to give each other a break was one of the ways that my mom and I began to move toward one another and be friends as adults. My mother and I got to be friends because we forgave one another. We confessed past sins and offenses. We talked about hard memories. We recognized that neither one of us was an enemy to the other. We covered over our weaknesses with accepting, gracious love. I will miss my mother every day for the rest of my life. When good things happen, they won't feel quite as real because I won't be able to call her and tell her about them. When my daughters serve through music, I will remember that it was my mother, the woman who couldn't even play a radio, who bought me my piano and paid for my lessons and gave me, and now my daughters, the life-changing gift of music. This was one of my mother's greatest and strongest gifts. The ability to help people dream big dreams, set goals, work hard, and move beyond what their present circumstances tell them. I'll close with just one more story, even though I could tell you hundreds more of her kindness. It actually has to do with the most important thing in my life, which is my identity as a child of God through faith in Christ. My mother was not a church-going woman, and we never had discussions about God when I was a little girl. But when I asked if I could go to church with my elementary friends, she said, sure. And when I was just out of junior high school, and members of a cult were flattering me with attention and false promises, she wisely said, be careful. And then when I began to read the Bible in high school and returned to the Lutheran church of my infant baptism, I learned of this great gift of salvation through Christ. My mom was supportive and quite long-suffering because, you see, when I became a Christian and God saved me, I was like the biggest Pharisee, self-righteous jerk Christian you ever met. My sister can attest to that as well. This was one of the many failures that my mom and my sister had to forgive me in order for us to be friends. And they did. They forgave me, and we were true friends. Actually, they're my best friends. My mom was always very respectful when we would talk about issues of faith and belief, and she even generously and bravely gave me permission to tell our story, as I have this strange little part of my life that I've written books and I speak at conferences around the world. And I tell the story of this beautiful, brilliant, flawed woman raising a beautiful, stubborn, flawed child in a difficult family setting with many aspects of suffering for everyone. My mom's first marriage was very unhappy. And of course, As many of you know, she has had some as yet unaddressed addictions and some psychiatric challenges that were not yet diagnosed and helped. So the first few decades of our life story had a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. But my mother said over and over to me, if by sharing our story you can help even one woman, one family, any person, I give you permission to share anything with anyone at any time. And wasn't that Kathy? And this I have done. In the quietness of my real life, which is in this tiny little community in Montana, and in this public setting, Kathy Kroncke Ford has helped me, has helped her friends, has helped thousands of women who never actually got to meet her in life, but just by hearing her story. Kathy's helped us all to know that we are not alone. We're not crazy. We're not, to use AA's term, chronically unique. If we struggle with broken relationships and addictions and mental illness, if there are things in our lives that just seem so overwhelming, we're not alone. We're not chronically unique. We're just human beings, created in the image of God, walking through the brokenness of life in this fallen world. Our life stories may vary, but there's a common theme which I describe as God's magnificent grace at work, taking the broken things of life and making beauty from ashes. Thank you, Mom, for forgiving me and loving me and being such a good friend to me. I love you with all my heart, and I wish you were still with us today. Thank you.
Thanks.